28th of 2025. A lot of people like to know the date. So we got a great guest, Coach Butch Thompson, Auburn baseball coach, hosting the third regional last 4 years. Before we get to that, I want to remind you, take pictures of the QR code. We're broadcasting live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, 7 channels simultaneously. And if you don't catch us live, catch us whenever you watch your podcast and share the link. We got a great channel. 8 shows on this channel, SEC Sideline Sports Network, and do it on this show Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Central. So let's get started, Coach, and appreciate you joining us. I know you're preparing. You're a meticulous detail planner. Big deal. I think it's a big deal. Third time to host a regional in the last 4 years. You have reminded this audience on many occasions there's good baseball played all over the country. Just because some teams up north and they're not outside all the time, they do a lot of stuff inside that's different, and you've learned a lot from that. First off, how excited are you to host this regional, and how calm will you be by first pitch?
This is the calm before the storm. It'll be crazy at Plainsman Park, but first and foremost, you know this as a father or ever been a part of a team. I'm like, for these players to absolutely be able to garnish a national seed, top 4 out of 309 teams playing in Division I this year, man, that's a big deal. So we have to celebrate that. And I know the journey's just beginning, and these guys have got to win 12 or 13 games in a row or they're garbage. But I do want them to understand what they've accomplished, and we do want to get ready to play baseball, because not only the 3 teams that are in our regional, but every team that made the final 64 and start this journey have had an amazing experience. They have a pitcher that can start a game and give them a full start. They have a guy that can finish a game, or they would not be here. They got some guys in the lineup that have done some amazing things. I think about Central Connecticut's our first opportunity. They got a guy hitting .458. I don't care what league or what level, the MAC, the SEC, the Big 12, it does not matter. Every team presents certain threats to your existence. And so we're trying to uncover those, and we're trying to figure out strategies to respect the game, respect our opponent, to apply force, because it's hitting patty cake time of the year. Everybody must feel and experience us trying to apply our force. And then it doesn't matter how good you are. It's how good you execute. It doesn't matter who you play. It's how you play. And that's what this journey before us is setting up to be all about.
Yeah. Doug Dean, AU Dose, huge part of our show, sent me some text about, great having you on here. He's watching in Birmingham. Talked with Butch about the key role of AU's non-conference scheduling. Auburn has number 1 strength of schedule. And Doug pointed out the director of ops, Greg Dry, was the architect of the nation's toughest schedule, which was really helpful in securing the number 4 national seed. And I'm with you. Iron sharpens iron. You get so much better running, swimming, playing ball with people that are really, really good. You don't do yourself any favors by just beating up on weak competition. And so I salute you. And not just because I'm an Auburn grad, but you don't back down from anybody.
Well, we had to. When we got here in, I guess, October of 2015, and tried to build the program, and already been at Auburn before and 2 other SEC stops, I'm like, what can take Auburn to a national brand? And, we started slowly, and then 18 and 19 were 2 back-to-back regionals. We went in 17, 18, 19. 17 we were glad to be in. 18 and 19, I thought we should have been a host. So they take 16 teams as host sites. I guess we were 17, 18, and just couldn't punch the ticket. So I started doing research. I started with Boyd's World, the RPI, the NCAA, whoever would listen to me. I'm like, what does Auburn baseball have to do to host a regional? And we're fortunate. That's where I think the 3 out of 4 come with the change in schedule in 22, 23, and 25. Now we're fortunate, and I give Greg Dry a ton of credit because he was my sounding board, and I had him calling all these teams and getting out of games and adding games, and I didn't want to talk to anybody direct, so Greg was the guy that was in between all my madness, if you will. So, that's part of the experience last year that nobody could understand. Was like last year was a number 3 strength of schedule. We wasn't good enough. We had some injuries, wasn't good enough to sustain it, and we got punched in the mouth. This year was a nice bounce back. Now you got the number 1 strength of schedule. And our conference schedule wound up being the hardest one I've been through in my 24 years in the SEC, but it paid dividends. We didn't play a couple at the bottom, and we played everybody at the top. And everybody at the top, we went on the road to their place.
Yeah.
4 of our 5 SEC weekends on the road are regional host. And then, we purposely go to Arlington, Texas, and we got Oregon State, who is the number 1 independent in the country. We scheduled Holy Cross, which is the Patriot League champion. We scheduled Wright State, which went 25-5 and won their conference. We started after that 2019 of being so disappointed not hosting a regional that we put Georgia Tech an hour and a half away, a great team back on the schedule, home and away. And that's your ACC regular season champion this year. So if you look, we started going in-state on the road more often,
Yeah.
All of those things, it played out beautifully this year. And, now I'm already looking at our 26 schedule this week to make sure that it's in line.
Yeah.
But it creates a tough journey. We're probably at 38 wins when some teams are at 40, 41 wins. But nonetheless, we played almost half our season. We went 20 out of 24 games versus top 25 teams. That's one of the toughest journeys I've ever been a part of. Hey, and I'm thankful for a committee that still puts a stance on, and us being the number 4 national seed, they sent a message like, schedule who you're playing. Vanderbilt winds up being our number 1 overall national seed, and it's a lot of those same elements. So I think it's a voice to everybody out there of like, hey man, you can schedule any way you want to, but we will reward somebody that made an effort to create, a challenging journey, something that you have to rise up and play for. We'll recognize that at the end of the year. I'm thankful for this year's committee understanding that.
I am too. And I was talking to Waller May yesterday and Guy, and they're going to be there this weekend. And I will say this too, the crowds over 5,000, but I think at the spring scrimmage, A-Day, whatever it's called now, there were over 7,000 there. So, I mean, that's a tribute to you and your team. And I want to ask you, looking around the league real quick, and then I've got more back on Auburn, but you look at Kevin O'Sullivan. What he did starting off 1-11. Look at Wes Johnson at Georgia. Who are some of the coaches like those guys I just mentioned? Maybe some we're not talking about that are helping to make this league so strong, because playing in this league gives you a lot of street cred.
Yeah, it's really top to bottom, and I know the nation's tired of hearing it. And I just maybe it is resources. It is fan bases. It is coaches. To your point, these coaches have been wildly successful, and players. I think I mentioned last time there were 80 former SEC ball players on opening day major league rosters this year. There's stars out there today. I take all our teams and look at their coaching staff. Look what Mississippi State just did, the last 3 weekends, and hooking it up and getting back in a regional, and it's well deserved. Yeah. Kevin O'Sullivan was 1-11, and to hold something together is pretty impressive. Texas A&M had an unfortunate weekend late in the season to keep us from having 14 teams, I think, in the deal. They beat us 3-2 in the SEC conference tournament there. That was the preseason number 1 team in America. Yeah. And had a tougher go of it this year. We've all been there. We've all gone through the ups and downs of this league. You do not get unscathed if you're going to sit here in this space for a long period of time. And to the credit of these coaches, again, I understand, and I was probably the same way when I was a junior college head coach, an NAIA pitching coach. we're like, man, I could do that. That SEC, man, that's cream puff stuff. Well, I just when I look at these coaches and some of their journeys and how they stay in the fight and have their teams bounce back and how far they go and the last 5 national champions, et cetera, I don't think it's as easy as it looks what these coaches and players do in our league. And it's another impressive year for sure. Last year we got the most ever in the field. This year we trumped that. Now we did add 2 schools, so we went from 11 to 13, but I think the SEC was deservingly so.
Hey, looking at your pitching staff, and you've mentioned, I think a few weeks ago on this show, you've had 16 pitchers go to the major leagues in the last 10 years. And by the way, it was October of 2015 because I was on the trading floor at Duncan Williams in Memphis, and Ben Clanton, a huge Mississippi State fan, got off the phone and goes, Browne, y'all just got the best baseball coach in America, Butch Thompson. I said, oh, I remember him 06, 7, and 8. And he goes, well, he I can't say what he was mad. He goes, God, he's going to Auburn. He goes, y'all are going to be really, really good. And Ben umpired for 9 years in the Pacific Coast League, and now he's slinging binds, but huge Mississippi State fan. But I remember that so well. And I also remember your vision that you had of putting luxury boxes along the Tiger Walk. And you look at the outfield now, and I look at, I'm telling you, Ray Mooring and Pat Cornelius and Matt Rayburn and Travis, rest his soul, Rayburn. I mean, just these guys, baseball was ginormous when I was at Auburn. You had the Braves and Auburn, but now you've got the facility, but you've got this commitment. Hal Baer did an incredible job, but now these facilities, and it's going to the game. Wilson in college, they just had to hang out up in the parking deck. But isn't that what you want? That kind of fighting for tickets. I mean, I'll stand for 4 hours. I don't care. That's what I see happening.
You know, I know after we put them on sale Monday after the selection show, in a couple hours, basically most of our tickets are gone. We might be down to 100 or so, but I'll also say I think there's some surprises this week to where you're going to see temporary fence stadiums, chairs up around the bullpen, the hill. We're going to get 7,000 or 8,000 people in there this weekend, much like the biggest weekend this year was the LSU weekend that you referenced earlier. And our people is not just going to sit on their feet. I give our administration a ton of credit. They're like, how can we build this out? We're going to get another 1,000, 2,000 this week. And we're making that investment. We put in a great bid. We're excited. It's okay to be over the moon and excited about the opportunity. And like I said, in my measured words, I'm going to support these guys like crazy because they've been amazing for me. They put our program back on solid footing, if you will. It's been a hard year, but tough times make tough men. And these guys go from last year to now. We're one of 7 schools that have hosted 3 of the last 4 years. And those 7 teams are pretty household names. So we're glad for the opportunity, and hopefully we make the most of it.
No doubt. Another question from Doug Dean in Birmingham asked Butch about the pitching rotation for this weekend. And you're seeing the depth of the pitching staff really pay off as the head coach. I don't know why, in college you're a coach, in the major league you're a manager, but talk about the depth that you've built, starting with Mr. Dutton, who came back home from LSU after 3 years, and what his experience means to your team.
Yeah, we hope it's deep. We'll finalize it this morning at our last staff meeting, but all these guys are on track for flexibility. We'll probably do what we've done the last 3 weeks. That would mean Cam Tilley, a right-hander, would go game 1. Sam Dutton would go game 2 regardless. And then I think we'll be TBA and see how things shake out. You can't get ahead this time of the year and invest. But I think that was the biggest thing that we were all waiting for and wanted to get under the hood of all the teams that we were playing, and look at their identity and see how our pitches match up. Sam Dutton's done an amazing job, if you would say that.
Yeah. Yeah, Sam, talk a little
In
bit more.
some ways, it's been good for him to get some rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, can you hear us now? I mean, I lost you there for a second.
Okay. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear you now. Yeah. You were talking about that pitching depth, which is so big. And Dudley Dawson covers Arkansas, hogville.net, been up there a while. He's a big fan of yours. And Dudley, say hello to Coach Thompson. We're talking about these regionals and just how big baseball is in the SEC. Now, you're a Cardinals fan. And, Coach, I don't know who you're a fan of. You got players everywhere, but you grew up in Mississippi. I'm willing to bet you a pitcher of lemonade. You listened to a couple of Cardinals games with Jack Buck and Mike Shannon growing up as a kid, didn't you?
You bet. I think we all did, right? That's our first love, and that's why baseball is so ingrained, and especially guys our generation.
Yeah, we lost you, but Dudley, jump in here with Coach Thompson.
Hey, Coach, good to see you. Fantastic year. Congratulations on that. Missed you coming up here this year. But I always enjoy getting to be on here with you. And again, good luck in the. You're one of the ones that does it the right way, and I've been around here a long time. Not everybody does it the right way, but you do, and I just wanted to put that out there and tell you I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I appreciate the words and the comments. And, that Arkansas is about as consistent, in my 24 years as any program's been, what Dave does. And I sit right next to him at every SEC head coaches meeting every year. And I keep trying to get his secrets to rub off on me. He does an amazing job.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that what Dudley said is I'm a huge fan of good sportsmanship and these relationships that you see with the coaches. And I mean, hell, I want my team to win, but I live in Memphis, man. I got a lot of Razorback friends, and they want that championship so bad. And I said, man, you got a program that's always in the conversation in the last 20 years. And Dudley, you've witnessed it firsthand. That is what we love about baseball. Coach, I know we've had some sound issues this morning, but as you get ready for this weekend, when you look at the crowds and you look at the interest that's here, and then you think about getting to Omaha. Just you've always talked about Father's Day in Omaha, Nebraska. That's as good as it gets. What is it about baseball that just draws us in? It's like reading a great novel, a Faulkner or Hemingway or whatever. But and here's Vince Ferrara, covers Tennessee, does Tennessee baseball up in Knoxville. Coach Butch Thompson's with us, but Coach, there's something that's just gets in your soul with baseball, and I love all these sports, but baseball. I think it's the first thing we ever did with our dad in the backyard was to throw a baseball before we even threw a football. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of our first sports, when you do Little League and, mom and dads do the cokes and the drinks and dads coach the team. And, Father's Day, Omaha being in that same spot for decades is what's made the biggest difference.
Yeah. Okay, Vince. I know. We've got some sound issues with Coach, so if you have a question for him, and then I've got one more. And but Vince, jump in here with Coach Butch Thompson. We're talking SEC, NCAA regional baseball on the trip to Omaha.
Yeah, heard Coach. Great to be on with you. Appreciate you. A lot of respect for what you guys have built there at Auburn. Certainly, you guys had some success against Tennessee earlier this year. Wondering what coming out of that, what were your impressions of this Tennessee team that obviously didn't have the success in terms of series wins down the stretch, but as everyone knows, still has a pretty good body of work. What were your impressions of that Tennessee team?
Yeah, I think they could defend their title. I think they could go back to back and win another national title. They have strength, power. They still have, arguably the best arm in our league. They were the number one team earlier this year. I just think this league's hard. I think it's easy to lose and it's hard to win. And I think teams go through certain things. Have they learned something? Have they grown? But there's no doubt this Tennessee's talent is undeniable. They absolutely can make a run at this thing once again, just like 4 or 5.
Yeah. Hey, do you think that the committee
happened? I think about an Arkansas. I think about it.
Yeah. But I don't know. The internet gremlins are just out there today, man. It's rough. But can you imagine the pressure of a coach with having to go out to the mound in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, down by 1 in Omaha? This is nothing. It's just this stuff just happens. But and Dudley, we all are watching this SEC baseball now, NCAA regional, and here's Arkansas hosting. Here's Tennessee hosting. And I look at Tennessee, Vince, lost 5 players off last year's team that hit 20 or more home runs, and they've hit 122 this year. I don't know where they get those bats, but whoever that hitting coach is, I don't know how they're keeping him there. But man, they are. I'm with Coach. They'll keep you up at night, and so we'll. I guess Coach. Man, the Gremlins got him, but that's the interweb. I'll talk to Al Gore about it. But I just think that right now, people say baseball doesn't draw the interest of football. I don't know. In the South, everybody seems to love baseball. And look at these crowds and standing room only. I think we're really just getting started on where college baseball is going.
Yeah, there'll be somewhere between 12 and 13,000 here this weekend for this series or regional. And I've made it clear that baseball's always been my favorite sport, and I'd still be playing third base for the St. Louis Cardinals if my dad hadn't put me, even at age 61, about to be 62, if my dad had put me on the tractor at 12. That was a decision he made. But I'm looking forward to this. This is always a fun time. We here at the Dawson household, we never schedule vacations before the middle of June. Yeah. That they've been there 3 of the last six years, I think. And so we got a chance to make a run here this year. I'm sitting back here watching this selection show the other day thinking, okay, you got Arkansas at third. We know who you're going to put. We know who you're going to put at 14. We know. I ain't fooling anybody. And when that's for me, who doesn't root for teams, but who roots for narratives and stories, that's delicious. If it gets to there, that's delicious.
Yeah, Dudley, I'm with you. I absolutely knew that these two were going to get matched up. And I know we saw it in some of those Field of 64 projections, but it crossed my mind even before some of those, put it that way. And I also thought that they would match up at other SEC teams to potentially meet in the super regional. Look how stacked the right side of that bracket is with all those SEC teams. So yeah, not a surprise. 6 of the 8 that are host are on one side, so you can have those all SEC matchups and then kind of eliminate themselves, unless you have upsets on the other side. But that's what I was going to ask Coach Thompson about, because it looks like they do those storylines. And I didn't get a chance to ask Coach Vitale when he came on with us earlier this week because we were getting into some other stuff. But I wonder if coaches think about that. Okay, yeah, the committee, they're looking ahead and putting together those storylines. We know it happens in basketball. There's no way that doesn't cross their mind. Like when they can slide one team, one spot, when their resumes are almost identical, oh yeah, we'll just slot them here in the allegedly geography and all that kind of nonsense. But
Yeah, I think the coaches do a really good job at trying to downplay that a little bit, but
right,
I don't.
right.
I think that's certainly what happened. Coach Van Horn did a great job in saying, well, I knew there was going to be somebody, from the SEC probably that we'd be matched up with because you got
Right.
so many teams,
Yeah.
half the host sites, but a fifth of the field, so there was going to be some, but he knows that we as writers and people as fans root for those type of situations. I could have found some other ones, but I couldn't. I'm not sure I could find one better. It's just a great story, and I've made it made it known here numerous times. I like the way Tony goes about his business. It rubs some people the wrong way, but man, if you didn't have so-called villains in the world, you wouldn't have so-called heroes.
Yeah. Well, and it creates. He's super competitive,
And that's the deal. You don't want somebody who takes losing and loves it.
Yeah, exactly. And he makes some people uncomfortable. I love the competitiveness of watching Tennessee play. They are vicious, and that's in a good way. Dudley, Blind Squirrel Sports out of Buena Vista, Georgia. Cardinals seem to be playing well lately. I wish the Braves were playing better. They started off the first 6 or 7 games on the road, but kind of give a little love to the St. Louis Cardinals. I wish I had a ice cold can of Anheuser-Busch to go, in the 7th inning and tribute to Mike Shannon. But Cardinal Nation.
I don't think he really waited till the 7th inning, but you could hear the one in the 7th.
I don't either.
He'd had a few more before then. But yes, 17 of the last 22. Again, like I said, when they won, they had the winning streak at 9 in a row. That didn't think they'd win 9 in a month, much less in a row. But I'm excited about the way they're playing. We're going to have a change at general manager next year, and I think it's still the right thing to do. I think that Chaim Bloom, which, by the way, I've learned how to say now. I don't call him Chaim, Chaim. It's a lot of names I've learned over the years. Dudley's pretty straightforward. You can read it and you can say it. I like the way that all mine are not silent.
Yep.
But it's just the Cardinals have played great. It makes my day better. It makes the dog's day better, my wife's day better. Anybody I run into's day better. If they get on a losing streak, then I'm not the happiest guy, and it probably shows up in my writing a little bit. But there's probably some better puns and better leads when they're winning than when they're losing.
Yeah, and it just there's so many games of baseball too. You got to be a great writer to make them. It's different. You got 162 regular season in the majors. It's a lot of storylines you got to come up with. Vince, switching away from baseball real quick. What is this stuff? I was up trout fishing over the weekend with fans. I think I counted our group. There were like 7 different SEC schools, which is typical, and several Tennessee fans, Alabama, Auburn. It was brought up about Tennessee could be, pushed out of it. I mean, that's never going to happen. But we were talking yesterday on the show. Tennessee, a founding member of the table in 1933, and but why is this similar to like when Missouri passed that law for NIL? If you're an in-state recruit and you're committed, you can start getting payments in high school. I mean, that caught people off guard, but explain to our audience because Floyd R. Turbo from Olathe, Kansas, remember him on the Johnny Carson show, Floyd R. Turbo, American? He wants to know.
Well, basically what it is it's a get out of jail card, free card is what it is. So it covers their bases with the language on it to where whatever comes out of that settlement, they don't have to adhere to that. The state law would take precedent over that. Now, we saw what the alleged response was with that contract, which interestingly, I didn't hear. I haven't listened and read everything, but I don't know that Greg Sankey was asked about that yesterday. So maybe he will, maybe it wasn't. He didn't say anything, so there was no headline on it. But I thought someone would say, hey, what's the deal with this contract that, these conferences are supposedly trying to get schools to sign and agree to. But that's the give and take on it. And so, yeah, they're trying to keep from everyone doing what their state laws say, because if that takes precedent, then everyone else is going to create bills and state laws to where we spent all this time waiting for the settlement. They come out with a settlement and then no one has to abide by it. I mean, that would actually fit the way the chaos of what we'd have, though, if that was the case. So we had a sports attorney and Dan Luss. I'm not an expert in legal and all that, so it's not the most comfortable to talk about. So I lean on people that know, and certainly Rob, you know law.
So I do too. I watch Perry Mason and Matt Locke, and I've got it all down.
You're more qualified than me, then.
Yes, and I know Hamilton Berger is not a good DA.
Yeah, he would not be the guy I go to if I got indicted for murder.
Hey, Perry just owned him, had him on a string.
So yeah, and he said, look, he understands that the conference is saying, all right, somebody's got to reel this in and have some sort of accountability. But really what you need is collective bargaining, because until then, everyone's going to say this is illegal to do. We're going to take it to court. We're going to sue. And then somebody else is going to try to do something illegal and create a document to force. So there's just going to be the back and forth. And until you have a give and take, then you can set your own rules and parameters, and everyone has to abide by that. Dudley, you're a Major League Baseball fan. You guys know pro sports. Pro sports, they have rules. They have limitations. Not everything is free market. So that's what everyone's alleging. Anytime something comes up, well, free market, that's illegal. Well, that's because there aren't any parameters. But in order to get the parameters, you don't just need a house settlement. I think you're going to have collective bargaining. Now, how do you get there? Who's going to make those decisions? But there's just so many questions that come with that. But even Danny White, that's where Tennessee is always in the middle of this stuff. Danny White said recently in an interview with the chancellor of the University of Tennessee and Don Plowman, who both have done amazing jobs, but he said the solution is collective bargaining. Now, we need more details on that, but I agree that and she did too, that's going to be the long-term answer. How do you get there? When, to be determined, but I do think that's the direction it'll go. And Tennessee seems to always be kind of at the forefront of this issue.
I don't have a lot to say about politics publicly because I'm not stupid. I don't know that people don't care what I think, about politics. They care what I think about what I'm writing, and I don't want that to influence things. That being said, all I hear these days is a kid's phrase, throw it back to the states. So now I hear, let's throw it back to the states with this situation. And if your state is not going to step up and get in the mix and do the things that'll make them NIL, they don't want to throw it back to the states. Mm-hmm. So it's like any other decision, any other thing we go about. As long as it helps us, or
right,
helps, and doesn't help them, then they're fine with it. But if you fall behind, and I've said all along that I thought Arkansas trailed in the NIL and run up. And didn't get to where they needed to be early on. I think they've got good people, trying to get that done now as you play catch up. But, it's, you used to go out and play sports with a ball and a bat or a glove or, a helmet and all that. Now it's no longer just what you do on the field. It's what you get done off the field. So before you even take a step onto the field.
Yeah. But the states' rights, we're a union of 50 states, and the power, rests in the states. But to be a member of a conference, which is 12 different states, there's got to be voluntary compliance to say, okay, we're all going to do the same thing. But if we don't, Vince is right. You have just chaos, and I say absolute chaos. It'd be rough. It's legal in some states to buy weed. In other states, it's not. You can ride around Memphis on any given day and get a contact buzz at a traffic light. It's so bad.
Hey man, here's one thing. I have a cousin who got the medical marijuana thing passed here in Arkansas. He was the big push guy. Immediately, I was called into the office and told that I couldn't do that. And I was like, okay, why'd you have to bring me in here? I'm just, he's my cousin. That doesn't mean I do everything. He's got great hair. I have no hair.
Yeah.
It's things that baffle your mind that they think you might be like that other person.
Well, and that there's just issues. Like, again, some things are legal in some states, some are not. But if we're going to have a conference, we've got to have the 12 schools all reading from the same music. If not, it's going to sound like, when Barney Fife was in the choir, it's not going to work. All right. I went to Barnes and Noble yesterday anticipating I could get my hands on football magazines. Because I typically Memorial Day weekend, Athlons or somebody has their college football preview. Even if Vandy was 0-10 the year before, the headline is going to be like it is every year. Doors look to improve. I'm like, hell yeah. You can't do any worse. But I was disappointed, much to my chagrin. I was saddened. There were no football magazines. There were only magazines about the draft and fantasy stuff, but nothing concrete. Is that because with all the fluid, motion, the portal and all, they can't even go to print with this stuff. Again, you got to have the ticker at the bottom of the screen. Like during an interview, you can be talking about the roster. Whoops, he's gone. Okay. Next question. Somebody help me here because I'm drowning in sadness over not having my hands on a football magazine right now. I need it. I got to have a fix.
I think I saw Phil Steele say, kind of give his timeline of early June. So, Rob, maybe it's just pushed back a little bit. Just need a little bit extra time to gather all that info. I wouldn't imagine it'd go past that. At some point, you just got to roll with what you got, right? Yeah. So I don't think rosters are really it's not like portals are open, but you can add guys this late in the summer. There will be some additions here and there, but probably not ones that are going to move the needle or change their rankings or anything like that. So I understand a little bit extra time, but I think you'll be good here soon. And I'm with you. I'll go get Phil Steele's and Athlon and any others that are out there.
Well, does Phil Steele include a magnifying glass to
It's harder each and every year we get older,
It's just, when we were kids, it was
font size are real big with me these days. People come up to me and they look at my phone and it has this print that's so big and they're like, why? I said, well, why do you think?
Yeah, because I like it.
If you looked at my baseball scorebook, everything is amplified. Everything is bigger and more spacious, things like that. And that's because of age. And I had cataract surgery, so my vision has improved a lot. But still, the reading portion of it, as you get older, it makes it tougher for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my parents read. My mom reads at least 2 books a week, and she's 90. But they sell them now in the big print,
right?
And they're a little bit thicker. But when you're reading an Agatha Christie novel or some crap like that, and of course, her favorite TV show was Murder, She Wrote. I think Angela Lansbury lived to be almost 100, but she reads, and but Phil Steele, there's so much data packed in there, and it's always been difficult. But what I miss, guys, is going to like the Tobacco Corner newsroom at Poplar and Mendenhall every Sunday. Man, I'd go in there and get 6 or 8 different out of town newspapers and just lay them out on the floor like my nephew did when he was in law school. 3 days of study material at a time and just read over everything. And man, we were a much more literate society back in that time. And I'll never forget the guy that owned that smoke shop. There was a guy on an oxygen tank with a walker going, and he walked around the corner, and the guy that owned it saw him in there. It was a smoke shop and magazine store. And the owner goes, Hey, Tommy, good to see you smoking again. He's like, yeah. I will never forget that as long as I live. Tobacco Corner newsroom at Popper and Mendenhall. It was incredible. Let me say something about Winter Timber Outdoors. Folks, hunting season's over. Deal with it. We have support groups out there. It's tough, man, because if it swims, flies, crawls, or runs, I'm going after it, and it will be on my grill or in the skillet. Winter Timber in Athens, Alabama, open every day of the week, and they're building a store on University Drive in Auburn. It's 13,000 square feet. You're going through there on Interstate 85. Winter Timber Outdoors in Auburn should open up in late July, early August. They got everything you need for the outdoor hunting and fishing life. All your coolers, Yeti, Sitka gear, duck camp, Dixie decoys, food plots. You better be getting ready. Those big bucks don't show up to an empty table. They like it to be nice. You got to get everything just right. Winter Timber Outdoors, one phone call will get you started off right, and they're going to grow in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference.
One thing about Blind Squirrel Sports, he's he said a few tweets or whatever you call them over here about anonymous sources with coaches and stuff. We all hate to do that. I mean, nobody wants to do that, but there are some times that you have to provide anonymity to find out what you're getting. Everybody hates to go sources say. I very rarely do that, but certainly I've done it over the years, and I've talked to people who didn't want to go on the record, but they said you could do this and that. So it's not the way we want to go about doing things journalistically, and you really have to mind your P's and Q's or whatever when you're trying to do that and stay ethical and all that. But there's sometimes that you just have to, if you're going to let people know what's going on in the program, you can't out somebody, because they'll let you know what's going on. And very rarely in my career of 40 years or whatever have I ever taken what one person said. Yeah, the truth. Rarely have I taken two people. Usually you have to have three sources. And I mean, you have to be ready. If you're going to put it in paper, you better be ready to defend it in court. That used to be a thing much more back in the day. But, I've had issues with the NCAA before, with them, because I went to school at the University of Arkansas, was in the University of Arkansas sports program. There have been other schools earlier in my career that said, well, he's writing recruiting stories, so he's acting as a booster. No, that's not what I was doing. I was writing for, just like anybody else would. But, sometimes people in the SEC get excited and don't get a recruit, and it's my fault or somebody else's.
Yeah. And some people just aren't going to comment if their name's going to be attributed to the story. They don't want to hurt somebody or whatever, but that's the only way they're going to talk to you. I heard that at Fort Benning, around the military. I mean, this is off the record, and you better keep it that way. You're never getting another story. Vince, got the spring meetings going on down in Destin. They never have them in, places like, Devil's Lake, North Dakota in the winter. They're always in Destin, Tarpon Springs, Florida, Naples. But there's a lot being talked about. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to do some rapid fire in the last 15 minutes here. Are you for it or against it? 9-game conference schedule, and why on either case?
All right, just real quick on the on Blind Squirrel Sports is an anonymous coach thing. Yeah. I don't have an issue with that one because it's an annual feature that Athlon Sports does of anonymous coaches. It's just something that we know is coming, and they get coaches to participate when they wouldn't say that stuff otherwise. So that's just an annual thing in their magazine. I don't have a big problem with it. And he asked specifically about Tennessee. I didn't have a problem with what they said, and that maybe the expectation isn't for Tennessee to make the college football playoff. Because there's more of a question at quarterback and you have less talent there. So from that standpoint, I think it's fine. In terms of the models, it's very interesting. The 9-game conference schedule, I think even more so than I already thought before we heard from Greg Sankey at the spring meetings in Destin, is connected directly. The lifeline of a 9-game conference schedule is dependent on not only if and when they expand the playoffs, but what they do to change how the committee views teams for selection into the playoff in their rankings. he talked about that too much yesterday for us to not make that association. Even if ESPN is willing to give more money, and those reports are out there that they are willing, that was a big hang up before, but they're not going to make their schedule more difficult if they don't have some assurances that it's going to be viewed as a positive thing to play tough teams. He said, if we're just going to incentivize winning, then you could play lesser teams and win more games. That's not what's best for college football. That was right. Paraphrasing what Greg Sankey said, and I agree with him. Last year, we saw examples where, with Indiana especially, where if you stack up wins and you just lose to the only good teams you play, it's good enough to get you in. He used an example of Alabama being on the outside looking in, and even Tennessee ending up being as a road team. So what are we doing? So that's the seeding of it was a big part of it. But beyond that, they want to know that they're not going to get punished for playing that extra difficult game. And so, yeah, from that standpoint, I thought it was very interesting what Sankey had to say. I'm for it, but I know it's not going to happen unless they get assurances of spots in the playoffs. And Sankey even took a little bit different route there. He was like, you guys say the 4 guaranteed spots is what we want. That actually might limit us if we're just locked into 4. He thinks they could get 5. They would have gotten 6 last year if they would have gone to one of these formats, the straight seating and maybe the 5 and 11 format that has been talked about.
Yeah, very rarely do I criticize my brethren, but there were some yesterday who came out and got all upset, and Sankey's wanting to, take the NCAA down by 2029. SEC and Big Ten will have its own thing. Well, let me just say this to you. In politics, whoever has the most votes, whoever has the most representatives, they get to run things. And make sure that when I say this, you understand that the last word I'm about to say begins with a W. But the SEC and Big Ten run this witch right now. Yeah. And they get what they want. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. I mean, you can sit around and bitch and gripe about it, but that's the way it is. And it's going to happen. And Vince is right. There is no way I would go to 9 games unless I get exactly what I want.
Yeah. And what I'm not for guaranteeing 4 because Vince, you're right. That limits you. Okay. Also, I don't like it being set aside. I mean, Dudley, I used this comparison last night when I was on the Lowdown with Lauren Meadows on this channel about farming. I wonder how many people would be in farming if the government ever got out. And you'd also find out if we didn't have subsidies, what people really want to grow. Okay. Because you can be paid not to grow certain things. Well, if you're guaranteed 4, and let's say the conference is really bad, and I know we're an SEC show, that's not right. I want the top 16, the best 16 teams, straight seeding. Lane Kiffin is advocating for that. Golly, and Marv Albert's brother, Trev Alberts. Well, I wish he was. Marv Albert here. College football is at its absolute best when we have Vince Ferrara and Dudley Dawson on SEC Sidelines Sports Network. Kevin Harlan here. But, is Kevin Harlan the ghost of Marv Albert? Is Marv Albert still living? Question is his head rug still living, and will it be in the Smithsonian? Because it's one of the greatest ever. But
Marv Albert was at the Knicks game the other night. I saw that. So
the guys,
Kenny Albert and Fat Albert and all the other Alberts were there. Yeah,
I love it. But by the way, Vince, I was at Vanelli's Deli last week. Oh my God. I went in there, got the their Italian meatball sandwich. It's a mixture of their famous family sausage recipe and their meat on their fresh baked bread every day with the marinara sauce on there. And the bread is so soft, it's as if you had feather pillows on each side of the sausage. Mm-hmm. And I tried to get 2, and they only had enough to make 1. So my daughter got so excited because I gave it to my son-in-law before I went to the Touchdown Club meeting last week. They ran out there to get more, and there were none. And I said, you got to get there early, but you come to Memphis, I'm taking you to Vanelli's Deli. And my friend Daniel Pesce has his Pesce's Italian sausage, Pesce. Oh, my goodness. But talking about food and football, that's what I love to do. But both of y'all, if you went to a 9-game conference schedule, it would be fun, but I don't want them to guarantee, so I can't advocate for that. You would kill non-conference scheduling. That's what I think the biggest casualty would. One of the biggest.
You're going to contract a lot of schools too, because teams like Alabama, A&M, who are just coming in here and getting a big paycheck the first game of the season. That that would hurt them. I'm all for everybody getting as much money as they can. That's the American way and all that. But sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And I'm sitting here, Sam Pittman's probably saying 9 games. Man, I already got 8 conference games, and I got Notre Dame. I got Memphis, who's a regional foe that's been really good. I got Arkansas State, who wants to skin them alive. Yeah. And then you got the one game that you should win if you just show up. So, it's if, I've always said, if you're scared, go get a dog. If not, play the best you can play. Yeah.
Scared man ain't never won a fight, has events.
No. And, I've always been surprised that Tennessee's not been, back a couple of years ago when we first started having this conversation, that Tennessee wasn't more adamant like the Georgias and the Alabamas were at the time of 9 conference games. It's funny how even those schools have kind of backed off, taken a stance on it, and it's been more, hey, wait and see. And that's where kind of Tennessee has been. It used to be the haves and the have-nots. If you wanted to get bowl eligible, you were for staying at 8 games. If you wanted, to be rewarded with a college football playoff, berth with a tougher schedule, then you're okay with 9. So it would hurt non-conference scheduling. Some schools, it would be imbalanced because some schools have those tough annual rivalry games with ACC teams on their schedule, while others do not. And it would be, you would eliminate those big conference to conference schedules because everyone's going to schedule easy their other 3 games unless you continue to have a Power 5 requirement outside. I doubt the SEC would continue that. So, to just real quick to circle it back to the playoff scenarios, that's why I think if the format, there's the 4-4-2-2-1 format, but in a 16-team playoff, there's still 3 at-large berths. So I think that's probably more so than having it wide open, as some people interpreted Sankey saying, hey, let's have it wide open. We can get 5 or more teams. Well, if you guarantee 4 is your floor. And then out of the at-large, you can still get more than that. And if you have a down year, you still get 4. So that's where the problem is, because the other conferences are like, no, we're going to go to war. The ACC thinks they should have more than 2, Big 12 as well. So I'm for whoever the best teams are, but I understand them saying, okay, if we're going to leave this wide open, you're going to reward tough schedules and who you play, not just schedule for wins, because then we're not going to do what you guys want. You just want an easier route to get into playoffs than what we have.
All right, I'm going to dip into the dictionary of Southern culture and use a very powerful word here to describe all this stuff going on. That word is mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, a lot to think about there, Dudley. I mean, I don't know. I mean, y'all are both attorneys. I know you just don't tell me this because you could argue your ass off in court, both of you.
Absolutely,
because you're making so many great points. I just want to see the best 16 because I have so much confidence in the SEC to produce that I know they'll do it. But if you guarantee,
the reason I became a sports writer instead of a lawyer is because they don't serve Bud Light in court.
Yes, but speaking of anxiety, remember the days when you were on an absolute deadline writing for the paper and the game was going long and you're just like going, God, I mean, I want to go ahead and type it, but it could go the other way. But man, it's a different world. But this is a cool conversation with both of y'all. All right, we're about to wrap up. Vince, the sports animal 99.1 in Knoxville. Let them know how to follow you and what you're talking about. Same thing with you, Dudley. And I'll say goodbye and then talk about some sponsors. And been a great show.
Yeah, appreciate it. Vince Sports on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, and then obviously Twitter/X VINCE Sports, and then Sports Source Digital Network has some videos that I'm on. The Sports Source TV is a YouTube channel of TV show that I'm on a lot on Sundays as well. So there's a lot going on. Obviously, we've got the Knoxville regional with the Vol Network this weekend with Tennessee, with Wake Forest, Cincinnati, and Miami, Ohio, and it feeds into the Fayetteville regional. So we could potentially have us connected once again, Dudley, in the sports landscape. That'd be a lot.
And I expect you to make it up here if that happens. So yeah, we can do it live. We can do this show live from whatever bar we go to Tuesday night.
First ever, all of us together in one place. That would be history, right, Rob?
Cool. Hey, and the we Hogville.net and Fearless Friday. Hogville.net, we cover all 19 sports Arkansas has. By the way, shout out to the Arkansas women's softball team who had a heartbreaker, but obviously had a great year, and SEC did great in the bracket. Dead Sports is my DED Sports is my social media handle. I like the way he does that instead of saying Twitter or X or whatever. And I'm on all the socials except OnlyFans. I'm not going to try that.
All right, you two. Great stuff as always. Thank you. We'll do it again next week. Y'all have a great day. I love these guys. Let me say something about Landers Ford people. You may be driving an old car or truck or SUV. You want to go look at getting a new one. Head to LandersFordMemphis.com. Poplar in Houston Levy, right where Collierville and Memphis come together. And ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. Tell them what you're looking for. Just tell them everything. They will listen and give you their feedback. They've got a huge inventory. Broncos, the 25 Expeditions. I talk about them a lot. They look great. They're in. All the F-150s, F-250s, commercial grade, anything. And the service department will pick you up, provide round-trip transportation if you need a ride. Again, they are open every day of the week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., except Sundays. They take off on Sundays. But you get in there, it'll be a great experience. Cars, trucks, and SUVs. The Ford Power Promise, customer pricing. Don't worry about tariffs. Worry is the absence of faith. You won't worry when you deal with Landers Ford, because if you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And they're right down the street from our great friends at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Hey, turtle boxes. I got one right behind me. They got the best sound box that you'll find anywhere. This is one of them. They look like this. You take it out to the beach. You take it anywhere you take it. They drop in the water. As long as you got the seal on there, your music continues to play on. Huge selection of men's and women's boots. They've got tons of them. And Barber clothing for the men and the women. Filson, Duckhead. They've got it all. Summer gear for kids. Great looking purses for the ladies. Pants, hats, you name it. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company in Collierville, Tennessee. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Hey, Mother Teresa said it. We can all do something. We don't have to do everything. We can all do something. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, everybody. Every day, get out of your comfort zone and make great things happen. For executive producer Brendan Martin, it's Rob Browne. We'll see you later today on this channel for Auburn Undercover. Thanks for watching.